Well, I appreciate you staying up late for this edition of Stories Inside the Man Cave podcast. Let's talk about it. It's a series as part of Stories Inside the Man Cave podcast. Of course, SEC Media Days, the first for both OU and the Longhorns. OU, their day was Tuesday, and the Longhorns today on Wednesday, and it all wraps up tomorrow on Thursday. But a lot of questions for Steve Sarkisian, Kelvin Banks, Quinn Ewers, and Jahdae Barron. They all arrived in style. I mean, would you expect less? Quinn Ewers even had a 10-gallon Texas hat, and he was rocking it. The Longhorns, first ever SEC Media Days. Let's talk about it.
I felt like we've had a football team that has been obsessed with wanting to get back. And that obsession has led right into hard work, has led right back into who we are culturally and pouring into that, has led right back into highly competitive workouts and practices. But yet this close-knit bond that I've been super impressed with. And I credit our leaders on our team. And a lot of times, I've got these three leaders here today, but I'm thinking about guys like Jake Majors, Gunnar Helm, Barron Sorrell, Ethan Burke, Alfred Collins, Jalen Gilbo. I mean, there's so many guys in our program that have been through it with us that it's not just the high level guys that we all see. The leadership we have across the board is probably more consistent than we've had in my time here.
That is telling of Steve Sarkisian's program as they he enters his fourth season as UT's head coach. I know you've heard it, and I agree with a lot of the people who are saying it. Texas could not be constructed any better than they are entering their first season as a member of the Southeastern Conference. I mean, if you look at across the board on the two deep, offensively, defensively, they're stacked. I mean, I still will stand by a wait-and-see approach and see how Texas is on the defensive front. But everywhere else, seasoned, veteran, talent, and they have the size, especially up front on offense. And on the bookends, on the defensive ends, Texas has the guys. They have the horses, so to speak, and the talent and experienced talent. But if you look at today, Texas, I think from the outside looking in, you could say, you know what, they walked into their first SEC Media Days composed and also just handled everything like veterans, like pros. But it is just another Media Days. You put SEC in front of it, it adds a new meaning to it as their slogan. It just means more for the SEC. That's their slogan. And it does mean more in this conference. And those of us, including myself, you, the fan, coaches, players, anyone with ties to any program in the SEC, especially Texas and OU this year. It's new. It's different. The Big 12, there's no slide on the Big 12. That was good football. But this is going to be a lot different. And, you heard Sark talk about it and the new additions as far as for these veterans. And it is key to have a veteran team with a significant amount of leadership. They didn't have that leadership in year one. They went 5-7. They go to 8 wins in year two. And then last year, 12-2, Big 12 champions. And the leadership stepped up because there were some close games in which this team could have lost, but they didn't because the leadership and the culture were maturing and progressing. And now you have a team, including at quarterback, where Quinn Ewers 3 years in the system. All right. And you have good depth with Arch Manning back there. A lot of people are saying, what is Texas going to do at running back? They're going to be just fine. They're going to be just fine because when you have solid leadership in numbers in which a team is policed by a team, by its own players, where you don't have to have those coaches involved, the sky and I know it's this cliche, the sky's the limit. You have the combination, the recipe, so to speak, for a championship level program on the national stage. Texas lost to Washington last year in the semifinals of the CFP. Came down to one pass, an incomplete pass. And you've got a lot of these players are looking forward to display their hunger against the best in the country. Let's face it, the SEC is heavy with tremendous talent. You don't need me telling you this. And you've got also the fact that new rivalries which are old and mean something. And, I venture to say, I would ask you, which means more to you on the Texas rivalry front? OU, or now that the Texas A&M series resumes for the first time since 2011? Which of those rivalry games mean more to you? Well, Quinn Ewers had a history lesson about the Aggies rivalry from his own father. And I found this interesting, and I can't agree more than with Quinn's dad.
My dad actually said that he thinks that him growing up, he believed that the A&M game was bigger than the Red Rivalry game. So I'm excited to have that game back, and it's going to be a cool experience, especially going to Kyle Field, Thanksgiving weekend, and I know that place is going to be rocking. So we're all pretty fired up for it.
As are the fans and myself. I want to go ahead and put this out there. Kyle Field is the loudest football stadium on any level I have ever been to. And I've been to 3 games there as a fan. Media games don't count, in my opinion. Games attending to work as a media member, they don't count. But 3 games there as a fan, the loudest place. And that Texas and A&M game is special, even in Austin. But at Kyle Field, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see how this team responds. I know on the other side of it, the Aggies, it's going to be special to them. No doubt about it. But there's a lot of things to look forward to. But again, you've got the OU game, the Red River rivalry, the Lone Star Series showdown with the Aggies back on the schedule. And now you've got Arkansas back. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, and I think some other people have said that, they hate Texas more than they like their own team, the Razorbacks. I experienced it 2021, and I'll say it again. I went to that game 3 years ago. That is the worst I've ever been treated at any stadium in America. And that is a compliment to Razorback Nation. I was treated poorly outside of my family members who are season ticket holders up there in Fayetteville, but a great environment. And that has been a heated rivalry. I know it's been one-sided Texas. I mean, the Texas A&M series has been one-sided toward Texas, but since 1984, it's a lot closer. And I think A&M may have the lead in the series since 84. That's when Jackie Sherrill turned around the Aggies. But SEC Media Days almost over with. It wraps up tomorrow with the last quad, so to speak, with Arkansas, Texas A&M, Auburn with Hugh Freeze, and Mark Stoops, the brother of Bob Stoops, and Kentucky will wrap up SEC Media Days up in Dallas. And I have heard nothing but great things from the meals to all the events and how everyone's treated. Really excited for my fellow former media brothers, fraternity, if you will. But all the Austin media around the state done really good work. Go ahead and follow some of those people on Twitter because they've done some really good work. But, next episode, which will be episode 385, a couple of friends of mine from Oklahoma, one of which is a media veteran and a former OU quarterback, will join us on the next episode of Stories Inside the Man Cave podcast. It's all part of SEC Media Days coverage in Dallas. So whenever in doubt, if the subject of SEC Media Days and the Longhorns and Sooners and even the Aggies and Razorbacks, it's always good to talk about it.